All right, welcome in. Rocky Top Insider postgame show. Ryan Shumpert, Rick Butler here in Neyland Stadium after Tennessee's heartbreaker overtime loss to SEC rival Georgia right here in Knoxville. Tennessee falls by a score of 44-41. This was a thriller all the way through.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things to talk about. Going from Joey Aguilar's performance, obviously the kicked or the missed field goal at some point, the way that we got to overtime was kind of standing out in your mind as we get to this point in the night, a couple hours later.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a crazy. The game felt like it had 4 lives almost. I think that you say what's standing out most of how Tennessee, let this one get away, but wasn't able to kind of put the final seal in a victory.
Sure.
To me, the 2 pre-snap penalties. One, Tennessee's just trying to down the ball for Max Gilbert, and they have a false start. That just can't. And that's just inexcusable. I mean, you're not even really blocking in that situation.
Yeah.
So that's inexcusable. Look, I don't know if that 5 yards made the difference necessarily. I don't think in just the case of the kick, I don't think it made the difference. But then Tennessee doesn't run another play. It just led to things being, I don't know if chaotic's the right word, but a little awkward there at the end. And then the other one, I mean, Josh Josephs has the big strip sack with Tennessee up by 5 in the, I guess, early fourth quarter at that point, maybe midway through the fourth quarter even. And Tennessee's got the ball in plus territory, chance to not really put the game away, but make it very, very difficult for Georgia to come back. And you have a false start on the first play to drive. Tennessee ends up playing things pretty conservative from there, and ending up to opt for a field goal. Those are the 2 instances of, I think those 2 sequences, really hurt Tennessee, and were a chance where Tennessee could have won the game and effectively put the game away.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are talking about those 2 moments, here in the post game and the wrap up of everything that transpired today. But you're right. I mean, this was a wild game that felt like it had a bunch of lives. You have the way that the game started, which was electric for Tennessee. The first quarter alone, Joey Aguilar had more passing yards than Nico did in last year's game. You had Tennessee score more points in the first quarter, in the first 15 minutes, than they had in each game in the Josh Heupel, Kirby Smart era. Things were rolling, and Tennessee had the passing game going. Run game, not necessarily there, but it didn't need to be because Tennessee was doing so many good things the way that they were getting the ball. And then things kind of started to fall off a little bit, and you saw Tennessee struggle a little bit to get things going. There were a couple of untimely 3-and-outs. The defense, still played there and still did everything they could to hold Georgia back, but there were some untimely moments. Through all of that, though, one thing that we talked about going into the season a lot, where there were a lot of explosive plays.
Yeah, there were. I mean, Tennessee had 1 pass play of over 15 yards in this game last year, 9 today, and a lot of those early in the game when they got things going. Certainly the big 73-yarder to Chris Brazzell. If Tennessee wins this one, I think you're hard pressed not to say the biggest play of the game was his 54-yard touchdown.
Sure.
It was really just a complete mossing. Was not really open, but one-on-one coverage down the field. And Tennessee's offense for what felt like about 90 minutes of real time hadn't crossed midfield, had struggled to get anything going. That gave them a lead right there, and they were down the next time they had the ball. But the offense just looked markedly improved from that point forward the rest of the game. And yeah, look, Tennessee's. Joey Aguilar threw for 370-something yards.
371, 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, Tennessee had thrown for 0 touchdowns in these last 3 games. You could combine their passing yards in the last 2 games in the series. It wouldn't be as much as they threw for today. So that was why, look, I picked Tennessee to lose. I would still say I'm wrong because Tennessee did not. Tennessee did the things I did not think they would be able to do to give themselves a chance to win. And I think in a lot of ways that's what makes this one so bitter for Tennessee and so heartbreaking that they weren't able to get it done when they did the things in this series that they have not done.
Yeah, and that's just the nature of where this game came and the schedule. I mean, we knew that it was going to be a bit unpredictable because of the 2 games for both teams that led into this. It was a hard one to predict, and I don't think there were a lot of people saying that both teams would basically come close to the over/under themselves.
True.
And that's just a wild position to be in. There were a lot of things that I think Tennessee can take and work from on this game offensively. But the fact that you did put up 41 points, the fact that you gave yourself a chance in the end, I think that does say a lot about where this team is starting, being able to continue to fight. There were times last year where we saw Tennessee's offense struggle and just struggle to get back in a rhythm, get back going. Yeah. You give Tennessee a lot of credit for being able to kind of find those plays again. And there was one play where Josh Heupel and the offense just schemed up beautifully. Braylon Staley in the end zone wide open.
Yeah, their final touchdown, which gave them I guess I gave him a 5-point lead, and then they kicked the field goal to give him an 8-point lead after the Joseph strip sack on the next drive. So, no doubt, like I said, I want to see some of these changes Tennessee's made in their offense. Like, this is the game you're going to do it for, and I think you saw some of those new route trees and those new concepts that gave Georgia issues in this game. So, that was really big, undoubtedly, and I think just with Tennessee with Aguilar and some of the receivers stepping up. Those were big question marks, and we said we learned a lot about this Tennessee team one way or another. I think it's hard not to feel really better about the team as a whole, but certainly the offense.
Zachariah Branch, Tennessee was up 21-7. Zachariah Branch at the start of the second quarter, he takes a big 30-something yarder into the end zone. Not a lot of scoring after that until the end of the second quarter. Georgia's able to get some points there at the end of the half with, I believe, a 20-yard field goal. That set up a really big and a really important for what this game turned into be. First drive of the second half for the Bulldogs, able to just kind of march down the field. A lot of that was using the run game.
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee's defense didn't look great for large chunks of the night. The drive you're referencing, 75 yards, 14 plays, 13 of them on the ground. Tennessee just couldn't slow down the run at all, and you felt like at that point, with Tennessee being so thin on the defensive line, man, that Georgia might be able to do a version of this the whole second half.
Yeah.
So, you give Tennessee's defense credit. Those next two drives, the offense did not pick them up, and they got big stops, and, one holding to a field goal when, again, honestly pretty similar to a strip sack on the yard line that Georgia had it after a Joey Aguilar interception. So that you give the defense credit there, but, certainly you saw the lack of depth of defense tackle and the injuries there. You saw Tennessee being down their top two corners. That hurt.
Yeah.
I mean, Georgia picked on true freshman Ty Redmond from really the first play on. And Tennessee just wasn't able to get off the field enough on third down. And a lot of that because of the run game. Georgia was, for the most part tonight, in favorable spots on third down.
Yeah, I think this is a big game for Ty Redmond to sort of understand what these SEC teams are going to do to Tennessee without those two cornerbacks. And I believe that we saw Ricky Gibson in a sling on the sideline, so we don't know what that kind of timetable for recovery is going to look like.
Anytime soon.
But it doesn't seem anytime soon. And Ty Redmond, I think, for as young and as talented as he is, this is a big moment for him. This is a big game for him to learn and understand sort of what this next level of wide receivers look like. It's not Syracuse, it's not ETSU, it's certainly not high school, but still a lot of talent and potential with him. Again, I think this is a big learning experience and somewhere that you maybe didn't have Tennessee expected to be before the season, but able to compete with Georgia for 4 quarters. That was another thing that we talked about before the game.
Yeah.
It needed to be a 4-quarter game. Tennessee didn't there were stretches throughout the game where we just talked about where things got tough for them, but when it mattered most, I thought that Tennessee was able to climb back into things. Big bright spot in the game to me were Tennessee's edge rushers. Joshua Josephs, I think, continues to show that he's the player that a lot of us expected him to step into the role of being. And then Caleb Herring, I thought it was a bit of a breakout game for him as well. Maybe he had a couple of snaps that he would have wanted back, but ultimately, as we're not sure if these sprinklers are getting closer and closer to us. I think they're good. But ultimately, Caleb Herring, I thought a little bit of a breakout game for him and ended up being one of the players that Tennessee sent to go talk to the media afterwards.
Yeah, Herring made some big plays. He was getting after Stockton. I think had maybe a sack and a half in this one. And, Jordan Ross had a good pressure in there. And then Joseph's, I wish they would have played him more, to be honest. He was making a ton of plays in this game. I thought he was just exceptional. He played really good those first 2 games and had sacks, but again, the stakes were so much higher, the competition was so much better. He stepped up and played great. He's looking like a guy that's going to be a potential All-SEC, have an All-SEC season, and be a pick in the first couple rounds of the draft come spring.
We've talked a lot about the game broadly overall. We'll kind of move into the end as we wrap this thing up a little bit. Max Gilbert, late in the fourth quarter, I believe about 6 minutes left on the clock. He goes out there and he hits a 48-yarder. That was a big one for Tennessee. Then comes back up, and you're right, there was a lot of pressure. Tennessee did a nice job of running the ball to get in that position to set up that potential game-winning field goal, and it hooks to the right. Tough moment, obviously high pressure. That guy wants it back. It's a special teamer, right? You point to very few moments in which they have an impact as big as that one is, but I did think that it said something about who he is to come back out just a couple of minutes later and hit that first one of overtime. I know there are going to be people who are still going to be really upset about that field goal miss, and look, it had a chance to win the game, but was able to come back out, able to hit a big one in overtime, give Tennessee a lead and something to play with on defense.
Yeah, I think both things can kind of be true. He's got to make that kick. It's a game-winning kick. It's a kick he's fully capable of making, but 2, it was literally the same kick. 1 yard shorter on the left hash, same spot, same side of the field. I think that said a lot about him that he was able to flush the first one and go out and drill that one. So. That was big, and it just kind of I thought that last drive Tennessee was able to handle it so perfectly from a clock management standpoint, and then it just gets a little wonky late with kind of that procedure penalty I was talking about, and then Tennessee decides not to run another play. So certainly a situation that, you make the kick, none of it matters, but it's something you evaluate a lot more, or you analyze a lot more after you miss a kick.
Yeah, and again, we've talked about some of the good things that Tennessee did on defense. I guess right before that potential game-winning field goal, It was a gut-wrenching drive by Georgia to go.
Yeah.
I believe it was 4th and 7 when they hit the big touchdown pass to the corner of the end zone, and then obviously you wrote about it in your 5 takeaway story afterwards. But just Mike Bobo putting together a really nice play to get Zachariah Branch open for the 2-point conversion. I believe it was just right here behind us. Put Tennessee in a position where they had to go do something. They had a chance to go do it. But again, for 3rd game of the season, normally when we were talking about these Georgia games, it was at the very end. It was, hey, how is this going to affect things for the playoffs? This was early, and I think there's a lot of things to grow and take from. It's a loss that stings Tennessee, and I think you could tell that after the game with just the way that the players exited off the field, but there's a lot to get to here.
Yeah, no, look, I think the big 4th and 7 touchdown, you tip the cap to Georgia. I mean, I thought the coverage was pretty solid from Ty Redmond, but a great throw and a great catch. The 2-point play, I don't really think can happen. It's just too easy. I saw 3-year Letterman.
And now they might be getting close.
I saw 3-year Letterman joking. Mike Bobo's been running that same 2-point play for 20 years, and Tennessee's just completely unprepared for it. So I thought, again, much like last year, Mike Bobo really got the best of Tim Banks in this game, and that's tough because, again, for Kirby Smart has gotten the best of Josh Heupel in all these games, and for Josh Heupel to have the success, Tennessee's offense to have the success that it did, and to be playing at home, you have to win.
Anything else before we get out of here? It's been a long night. It'll continue to be a long night as we go and do all our post-game work, but anything else?
No, that's all I got.
This is Ryan Shumpert. I'm Rick Butler here at Neyland Stadium. Tennessee falls their first loss of the season, a 44-41 loss to Georgia in overtime. A lot more coming up. Stay tuned to RockyTopInsider.com.